screenwriter Paul Laverty.
Welcome, Paul Laverty. Tonight we will have a discussion of around 20 minutes together, and after that you in the audience will be able to participate in the discussions and ask questions to Paul Laverty. Paul Laverty, you have had an incredible career as a screenwriter with the works of, together with director Loach. You have worked for more than 25 years making films, which includes a long and rich filmography, including The Wind That Shakes the Barley, I, Daniel Blake, both which has won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, and now, most recently, the film you will soon watch, The Old Oak. To start off this discussion, I would be interested to know from the start when you became a screenwriter, what made you interested in screenwriting? And how did you become a screenwriter?
Okay, thanks very much, Laurent. Maybe just going to say one quick thing before I try and answer that question.
Yeah.
Let's see if I remember it. I just say what an enormous pleasure to be here. And Ken sends his very, very best. He's still as sharp and as quick as he ever was, but he's a little bit more fragile. So he's very, very sorry not to be here and sends his very best. And he told me about this beautiful theatre. So it's a real privilege to actually see it with my own eyes. And also, can I just say as well, just what a pleasure it is to see a full cinema. 500 and... I think, 523 seats, I'm told. And isn't it just remarkable, I think, in these barbaric times, when there's so much cruelty, so much fake news, so much lies, so much violence, that people come together and with the predisposition to sit down and put yourself in someone else's shoes. And in these days, I find that profoundly touching. And it's a precious thing to do, to listen to each other, to disagree, to argue, to try and untangle complexities. So that is the beauty of cinema. And I really hope you... And it's totally heartbreaking for me to hear that this beautiful space, might close. We lost our independent cinema in Edinburgh. I'm from Glasgow, but I live in Edinburgh now, and we lost our film house. And with that, we lost the Italian festival, the French festival, European cinema, political cinema, all these debates with a city of, with 4 universities. And you don't realise what you lose till it's gone. So there must be a creative and imaginative way to save this cinema. Yeah. So good luck. Yeah. I can never answer questions. Sorry, Lon. Well, in answer to this, it's a bit surreal because I never planned to be a scriptwriter at all. And it's really a total accident that I'm here. I used to, what happened, to cut a very long story short, I was in my 20s, and I suppose like many people that age, you want to learn another language and you want to see the other side of the world. And also I was interested in politics. And I was, like many of my generation, we were fascinated by the Sandinista revolution, in 1979. So I went to work there as a volunteer, and I worked for a human rights organisation. I was there for 2.5 years. So what I saw was a time of great barbarity. The United States financed the Contra, and they tore this little country, only 3 million people apart. And because I was an eyewitness to it, understood it, and I was fascinated by the systematic violence and the creativity of that massive violence. And there's shadows of that today, isn't there? And that collusion and a false narrative. And they were determined to crush the Sandinista revolution. And over a period of 10 years they did. And the ultimate aberration is Daniel Ortega, who is now there, has betrayed, the principles of that revolution. But it's to untangle that again. How did that happen? So to cut a very long story short, after my 2.5 years there, I was sick of writing human rights reports. And in my innocence, I thought, I'm going to write a film about this. And so with great naivety, but with a lot of determination, I wrote to many people. And I prepared a treatment, and I sent it to Ken. And what was wonderful about him from the very beginning, he was curious. You know, he said, it's a long shot, I don't speak Spanish, there's a war going on there, there's no film industry, it's a long shot, but why don't you try and write a few scenes? And the difference between writing a treatment and just writing a scene where you give people, you know, you have to choose their class, you have to choose how they speak. And that was like a drug. And I wrote up the first half of Carla's song. And after that he says, well, let's have a bash. But it was 5 years between then and getting the film made. And so I was very, very lucky to cross paths with Ken.
Fantastic. And what a beautiful collaboration afterwards. You've been working so many years together. What do you think has made your collaboration with Ken Loach so successful?
Football. Yeah. Yeah, we talk a lot about football. Yeah. I think that's the secret to it. Well, I mean, I think it's like any relationship, isn't it? I mean, there's a chemistry to it, and if you try and describe it, it falls apart, really. You know, I suppose I think you have to see the world in similar ways. You have to be joined at the hip. So, you know, the big things we don't really need to discuss. You know, I think those are things we take implicitly. So that's been very important. But what's also been very important is we have different jobs. You know, I write, Ken directs, but we meet in the film as filmmakers. You know, and the real joy of working with him, you know, is first of all he's a very tough collaborator, but a massively generous one. You know, and he wants you, and he doesn't want to sit on your shoulder. He wants you to follow your instincts. So I get total liberty when I write. And that's very, very important. And then, of course, you know, when I write the screenplay, we try to be our own toughest critics. And he's genuinely one of the guys with the least egos I've ever met in my whole life. And we just try and, you know, be our own toughest critics and, you know, try and solve problems. And so that's really, really important. And you never know how a film's going to turn out, but what you can do is enjoy the journey. And every single film that we've been involved in, you know, you meet incredible people along the way. And I think that has nourished us both. You know, and so it's been a mighty privilege to have spent so much of that journey with him. Yeah.
And when you're developing the screenplays, when you're writing, how much is Ken Loach involved in that? Do you share a lot of ideas and how you? Yeah.
Yes, well, it's very organic. Everybody thinks I've got the best agent in the world. I don't have an agent, and I think but Ken, from the very, very beginning, he's had a massive generosity to the writer, because he says that's where it all starts. So he gives people confidence, and like I say, we do very different jobs, but because we're so close, we're in constant discussion and debate, and it's very organic, and so, you know, when we do decide there might be a good subject, you know, for a film, you know, I'll dig around and, you know, I'll do a lot of research, you know, and because you've really got to try and understand the world of the story, you know, but you can't copy it from the street. So it's a process of making connections and trying to build something in your mind, and then forgetting it, then come up with the characters to tell the story. For both of us, a good issue doesn't make a good film. We've got to have a good story, you know. But how you choose those stories, that is really the biggest and the most important question. So it's constant dialogue. So when I do write the script, and I'll write that, you know, by myself, we'll meet again together, you know, to tear it apart and to ask the toughest questions. And we'll have, so it's a constant series of discussions, and then I'm with him there during the shoot when we do the casting. At the end as well, you know, we look at the final cut, and it's been a debate the whole way through. So, you know, and it's a real collaboration. But like I say, we do very, very different jobs, but we respect each other's processes, and again, like meeting in as filmmakers, and our loyalty is to the film. You know, that's the most important thing. You know, not whether, you know, there's a nice bit of writing that you've lost, and I don't care about that. You know, and the important thing is the final film, and it's lovely to work in collaboration like that. You know, and then of course, you know, being a director, then there's a whole other series of mighty collaborations with the DOP, the director of photography. You know, with Colleen Crawford, who does the casting with us.
How close do you work with them?
Yes, well, we're always there, because, you know, when you're seeing people, it helps you define the character as imagined in the script. You know, and you know, I don't think it'll be any spoiler to say that TJ in this film just now, which you're about to see, You know, he was a non-professional actor. He was in two little scenes in Daniel Blake and Sorry We Missed You. But he was a remarkable man. He used to be a fireman. He was in the Firemen's Union. Used to work in a pub. And but just speaking to him and listening to him, you could really sense a hinterland. You know, you could really sense his sensibility and his intelligence. You know, so when we do the improvisations and we do that casting, you know, it helps you define the character. And in this one, there's a particularly big casting, you know, because we have to, again, it's not spoilers, there's such a big cast in this one. So that was 6 months hard graft for Ken, you know, and that's, you really do have to admire his work ethic, because it was like, you have to find the local kids in the community. You'd often go to school, maybe get one person out of 40, you come back home at 10 o'clock at night to get a Chinese meal. And if you're doing that for 6 months as a 30-year-old, you get knackered. So to do it when you're 86, as he was then, was a really remarkable feat. And again, I think it shows I think it was his political determination that got through him. He was absolutely exhausted. We were very worried for him, especially it was during COVID. So it was such a relief to get through it safely. Yeah.
That's good. And you spoke about a bit the casting process.
Yes, I have.
When you're writing, do you sometimes have characters or actors in mind when you're writing and developing them, or do you keep that completely aside?
No. Just I would sabotage everything. I would banjax it, absolutely. Yeah. It would just fall apart in my hands, I think. I think you just have to just try and imagine the character. And then what Ken has always said is, in the casting process, if you get the script right, you know, which is, you know, a big if, but if you get that right, the next important thing is the casting. And then, you know, he just says we just try to find the people who will give it best flesh and blood as imagined. You know, so sometimes that is really remarkably experienced actors like Cillian Murphy, and you just saw a clip of Cillian, you know, in The Wind That Shakes the Barley. There's another one with Peter Mullen, who won the Best Actor award in Cannes with My Name Is Joe. I mean, people have great experience. But there's also people like Paul Brannigan and Angel Share, who I met. He'd just come out of prison. And he's just such a smart, bright kid. And I thought, wow, this boy's special, you know. And you think, well, he'll get a chance. The hilarious thing was, Ken came up from London twice to see him, and he never turned up, you know. So he was a bit of a scamp, and so had to threaten him with serious bodily harm if he didn't turn up for the third one. He met Ken for a cup of tea, and then it just blew his mind, you know. And he was a brilliant kid, and was fantastic for us. Carried the whole film, and you know. So he came from the humblest and toughest background. I'm only saying this in public because he's done a documentary about it. It's not like I'm revealing things that are private. But just a remarkable kid. But what was beautiful about Ken was, you know, he gave him the chance to carry a film. And if someone like that crashes or runs off or loses his nerve, you know, it's a disaster. But he's been so canny at judging people, and I don't think there's another film director who would have given someone like that a chance. And he's a brilliant kid and really remarkable. Martin Compston, Sweet 16, that was the first time he ever acted. And I hope you enjoy TJ, Dave's performance in this, a really lovely, humble man. Yeah.
You have been a screenwriter which has given a voice to marginalized individuals and groups in society across your filmography. When you write a script about burning political and social topics, what do you think are the most essential skills for a screenwriter to have in order to transform a story into a really compelling narrative which resonates with an audience?
That's a tough question, and I don't know if I can really answer it. I suppose it's got to live in the page. You know, the character's got to live. You know, and the characters that excite you as a writer are often the ones with often great contradictions. We did a film called It's a Free World, and there was a young woman in that, you know, who was an absolute, totally mercenary, ruthless character. But hopefully, when you watch the film, you understood her. So I suppose maybe authenticity is very, very important. I mean, the audience is just, I mean, I've got great respect for the audience's instinct and intelligence, so, you know, they can see through two dimensions. So you're always struggling to find that third dimension. And I think, you know, for example, like Daniel Blake, for example, it was how to dramatise bureaucracy. I don't know if you've seen the film Daniel Blake, but the premise is quite simple. You know, it's an old bloke has a heart attack and dies. Now, if you pitch that to Hollywood, you wouldn't get very far. You know, so how do you dramatise bureaucracy? How do you kind of show the pain of it? And what for me is very, very important is doing the journalistic work, you know, and trying to understand and make the connections. You know, so I spoke to people in food banks, and if you speak to people who are hungry and they express their lives, they will give you so many things, you know, things that you've never thought about. You know, what's it like to be sanctioned, to lose all your money, you know, for a month, 3 months, even up to 3 years. And it doesn't only sanction you, it's also the family. What's it like to feed your children biscuits? What do you feel like that? And if you spend time with people like that and follow their lives, they will just give you so much. It's very, very touching. And also, what it helps you understand too is they met whistleblowers on that there who were inside the Department of Work and Pensions. And then you found out what the government said in public were absolute lies. And I found documents from whistleblowers saying that, you know, with the list of fellow workers saying you haven't carried out enough sanctions this month, and if you don't, you'll be put on a PIP, a personal improvement plan. You know, this is the type of language, it's Orwellian. So then you know that this isn't just a bureaucratic, you know, mix-up, you know, on a big bureaucracy. This is systematic cruelty coming from above, a political decision by Cameron and Osborne, who are then in government, deciding they will carry out sanctions, and they've demonised people on welfare. So much so that in opinion polls, people thought that up to 30% of the welfare budget was fraudulently claimed. It was like 0.1%. So they scapegoated people on welfare, people who were sick, people who were vulnerable. Systematic cruelty by the state. And now they're up to the same thing again, and they're doing it now in our country now with immigrants and refugees in the most barbaric, racist fashion. And unfortunately that seems to be happening all around Europe. You know, they look for a scapegoat to hide their own incompetence. They tell lies about them in a grand scale. There's a narrative to blame them for everything. And you see the same people doing the same thing again as we saw with welfare. You know, and it's truly disgraceful to see just how barbaric and racist it is. Yeah.
Last question before we bring in the audience. What you mentioned now, it brings perfectly to this film, The Old Oak. Your latest film, which takes place once again in northeastern England after Daniel Blake and Sorry We Missed You. What was the driving force for you to want to make a story again in this part of England?
Well, I hope in time that people will see these three films together, and because I think they're different characters, but I think somehow they're connected. Now, after we did Daniel, when you make a film, you're just happy to get through that one. You know, so we did Daniel Blake. It was a relief to get that one made. But then we just felt that, you know, the world of work, precarious work, the gig economy was something absolutely massive, you know, and very significant. It was tearing families apart, you know, and so we really, you know, how is it? You know, in the world of Sorry We Missed You, Ricky, you know, he can work on a 12 to a 14-hour day, you know, exploiting himself, tied to an app, you know, driving himself to ill health. I mean, I spent time with drivers who are doing that. How did we arrive at that? I mean, that is a huge journey. Not only is it a change in the legislation from when we used to have an 8-hour day, when trade unions were much more part of our lives, when there was solidarity. What a journey in people's mind. You know, when you can travel, you know, from that community spirit to working in a van by yourself, thinking you're an entrepreneur of the road. You've swallowed the narrative, you know, swallowed the world of Jeff Bezos, you know, who hires psychologists to make sure we don't have trade unions. So that's, you know, William Blake talked about mind-forged manacles. That's a change of consciousness. So anyway, after Daniel Blake and Sorry We Missed You, we just felt it was unfinished business. And the question was, did Ken feel physically strong enough to try and do another film? So that was a big decision and a big call for him. So I went back up to the northeast. And I suppose, I don't want to have any spoilers here, but we just really wanted to have a bigger canvas. And we wanted to try and untangle some of these really, really difficult questions. And you know, And the miners' strike of 1984, that defeat by Thatcher, was a brutal political defeat against the working class. Thatcher passed anti-trade union legislation then. Tony Blair continued in that same mould, and I think what we saw was the miners destroyed by New Labour and Thatcherism, and that was a mighty blow. And I think, in a strange way, I think that helps us understand how we got to I, Daniel Blake, and Sorry We Missed You. But I don't want to say any more about that because you're just about to see it, and I've seen so many writers screw up presentations by talking too much about the film you're just about to see. So forget it. Yeah.
So we will now open the floor for audience questions. We have 2 mics on each side. So if you have any question to Paul Laverty, please raise your hand. And I think we already have one over there.
Yes. Considering the advancement of AI tools like ChatGPT, what do you think about the future of human screenwriters?
It's a very good question and probably beyond my competence, but can I just say one thing which is really, I find absolutely remarkable, just about the whole world of information technology. You know, isn't it remarkable that we hand over all this information and we make these people billionaires? This is our information. This belongs to us. And if we had any sense, we would say this is part of the commons. I don't know, in Britain, what happened was, they had the enclosure movement, and they cleared campesinos off the land, and then they privatized it, and then they took control of it. And it strikes me now that the bigger question is how we give all this information away so freely, and then they take it, and then they privatize it, and they commodify it, and they become billionaires, and they become very, very influential. It's ours. It's our information. And in a sane world, we would demand that that is used for the common good. And it strikes me it's the same thing's happening with artificial intelligence. Again, they're hoovering up civilization, aren't they? I mean, my son, who's showed me how ChatGPT works and everything. It was quite remarkable. And no doubt it'll get more and more sophisticated, but that's what it seems to do. It soaks everything up, and no doubt they will commodify it and make absolute fortunes. But out of fun, he asked me what the next story was about, and then we put it into ChatGPT and asked for a suggestion for a storyline, and I was relieved to find out it was totally shit. But I'm not complacent. If they can make money out of it, they will. And my fear is it'll become generic. My fear is, will artificial intelligence go around and talk to people in a food bank and watch their eyes? Will they talk to kids and see what it's like to feel hunger? I don't know. So I'm sure they're brilliant and very intelligent. So we have to watch this space, but I think again we just have to be careful that what we saw with the world of Sorry We Missed You. We see these brilliant people who designed the algorithms. They designed it brilliantly, so they could make maximum profit for Jeff Bezos. But they never had any time for a toilet break for the driver, and so we have to make it a tool that serves human need and not greed, as always. Yeah. So yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes. This is not a question, but would you please... I'm over here.
Can you wave so I can see you?
Over here. I am waving.
Oh, sorry, I'm just blind. Yeah.
Would you please send all of our best regards to Ken Loach and thank him for all the wonderful movies. And I hope he gets well soon.
I'll definitely do that. Thank you very much.
All our love.
Yeah. That's a promise.
We have one here.
Hi. I want to ask a question. It's like, for you, what's the message, considering all you said, what's the message? What would you like your audience to go home with after seeing this film or I, Daniel Blake, or everything?
Thanks for your question. I hope our films, can be reduced to a message. That's my answer. If it was a message, it'd be very clear. It'd be quite simple, and it would probably be quite two-dimensional. So, probably try and do in our story is explore all sorts of vulnerabilities and contradictions, and so I hope our films will just raise very important questions, because I'm not sophisticated enough to try and think that we're going to give a message and then people will swallow it. People will make up their own minds about it. People will bring their own experience and their own intelligence and imagination to it. So I just hope it connects with people, and I hope it raises questions, because I think filmmakers exaggerate their own importance. I think they exaggerate, how they can make a big difference. I think the people who change things are the organisers on the ground, the trade unionists, many of the grassroots organisations that actually change things. They're the ones that are the motors of change. But I hope film can help in that process. It's like Ken often says that film should be like a good library. We should have all sorts of films, right across the spectrum, like a good library, depending on our mood. But the problem is, who decides and who commissions the films nowadays? And even if you get a film made, who distributes it? So, by the way, a big, massive thanks to our wonderful Swedish distributors here, who've been very, very faithful and very faithful to us. So, you live off each other. So, my question is, I just hope it connects and lives in people's imagination. And if you do that, I think that's not too bad.
Time flies. We are going to the next phase of a prize ceremony. So I will welcome up on stage now Festival Director Git Chanius.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
We are so pleased here at the Stockholm Film Festival that we were able to meet Ken Loach 7 years ago when he was here with I, Daniel Blake, and we are so impressed not only with his films, the qualitative, but also with his persona. He was trying to take care of us instead of we taking care of him. And see you and listen to you now, Paul, it's a great understanding how you work together. And this is prize is for Ken Loach, but it's also for you too, because I know that your cooperation is very, very close.
Well, thank you for your lovely words, and thank you to the festival. Ken has sent me some words he's asked me to read out. Now, there's some lines in here you'll think I've added in, but it wasn't me, and I said... And I suggested to Ken he takes them out, and he says, no, you better say it, so you'll have to bear with me. So I'll read you these few words, if I can. If I can. But just before I say this, what an absolute privilege it is to receive this on his behalf. You all know, what a wonderful director he is from his work, but what you don't know is just his personal kindness. So, yeah, here we go. Dear friends, I am sorry and very sad not to be with you tonight. It is a great honour to receive this award. I know it carries great prestige, and I want to say a big thank you to the festival. Tack. I remember from previous visits the warmth of your welcome and the generosity of your hospitality. I'll be thinking of you. However, it is reassuring to know that Paul is there on my behalf. Awards like this belong to him as well as to me. We are a partnership of equals. We see the world in the same way, share the same views of the conflict at the heart of our societies, and laugh and are moved by the same human frailties and triumphs. It is my great good fortune that we have worked together for 30 years. Of course, there are many others I should thank. Rebecca O'Brien, the producer, is the other member of our gang of 3. And then there are the many friends who each bring their different abilities and creativity to work together as a team. And of course, there are those in front of the camera who bring the story to life, all talented, committed people, whatever their background and experiences. Over the years, our subject has been the struggles of ordinary people. Not out of sentimentality, but to share our common humanity with all its contradictions and vulnerabilities. Most importantly, if the urgent and necessary change is needed, is to happen, it will come from those with nothing to lose, the organised working class. Finally, thank you again, and thanks Paul for reading these few words. It's usually the other way around, me reading his writing. I hope I will come to see you again so I can thank you in person. Until then, good luck, best wishes, and solidarity, Ken.
I hope you enjoyed the film. Thank you very much. Thank you.